Alright, this is assignment 10, and I have a feeling this is going to be a long one, so let's just get started right into it. Okay, starting with the first game, Super Time Force. The first question is, are the rules intuitive? And I would say initially no. The rules are kind of complex on this one. On the surface, it kind of looks a lot like a Contra game, but it has a lot of time rewinding mechanics in it that add more depth to it. By rewinding time, you can fix past mistakes that you make or have another character run through the level with you at the same time that you're playing. It's a pretty unique idea. However, being a pretty unique idea makes it so it's a little more complex and complicated, so it takes some time to figure out exactly what you're doing. As for the second question, what are the audios and visuals do they add to the gameplay? I'd say no, not really. It's kind of got that retro pixel looking style to it, and that doesn't really change anything to it. I mean, visually, each character, how they play, they all look different, so... And, you know, you have little indicators of which one's you and which one's a past you, so maybe there. And then the music is kind of a chiptune style music, but overall I'd say that they don't really affect the gameplay that much. And then the third question about continuing to play, I only played for about 2 or 3 levels. I mean, it's kind of difficult and a little bit complex, and I'm not saying difficulty is bad, it's just that's not really what I was looking for right now at the time. The next game is Limbo. So the first question, are the rules intuitive? The game doesn't have a tutorial, it just drops you right into the game. And so you have to know, oh, this is a platformer, you know, arrow keys to move, space to jump. And if this is the first platformer you've ever played, you wouldn't exactly know that off the top of your head. And I had to go into the options and look to see that control was to interact with stuff. I wasn't sure which button. So I'd say for the most part it's intuitive except for that. The second part about the audios and visuals, they're nice. They don't affect the gameplay though. They more affect the atmosphere. There's little to no music and the sound is very ominous. And visually everything's dark and in shadows and silhouettes. So, you know, they're nice for the atmosphere, but they don't really affect the gameplay. And for how long I played for about an hour or a little more. I got to the part where you gotta put a box in the elevator and get that going, you know, right after there was that part with the saw. And I kept going because it's kind of fun to get somewhere and then you see like, oh, okay, that's how I was supposed to do that. So you try it again and try and do better. And, you know, that drive keeps you going. Next is Hotline Miami. The game has a quick tutorial at the start, and then after that, the rule basically becomes kill or be killed. So I suppose that's kind of intuitive in that you know if you don't take out the enemies, they're going to take out you. So about audio and visuals in this one, I gotta say, I love the music in this game. I really do like it, and I would say that sound does affect gameplay. Not the music, but like if you have a gun and you fire it, the sound will alert all the other guards and they'll come running at you. Whereas if you do things more silently, you don't alert people and you can be a little more stealthy and tactical about it. And the graphics are kind of in that retro pixely format, which works for it with the hyper-violence that it has. Because if you start making it more realistic, the violence starts to then become gruesome, and you know that's kind of off-putting, especially if you look at that game The Hatred, kind of case in point of that. For how long I was playing, I actually already own this game and actually have already beaten it, but I can say the drive to keep playing was there because when you're playing and you mess up, it's real quick to throw you right back into it, so you know, one more try, and you just keep going. Next is Mirror Moon, which is kind of a space exploration game, which, considering the previous videos where I was talking about space exploration game, you'd think I'd like this one, but I didn't feel like there was much direction in it. And so I didn't actually purchase this one, I just watched videos of it rather than spend the money on it. Which brings me to point 1. Are the rules intuitive? And I'd say absolutely not. The game throws you right there to, a console full of buttons and stuff with no instruction what to do, and just expects you to have at it. And once you figure that out and you end up on the planet, again, no instructions, just wander around until you figure out what you're supposed to do. As for the audio and visuals, there's not really much sound. I mean, there's kind of ambient music playing, and that doesn't affect the gameplay much. And the graphics, it's kind of abstract, and I would argue that it does affect the gameplay because it's, you have the little symbols that you pick up, and so they're distinct from the fact that there's nothing else anywhere else. And the grabbing the moon and manipulating it and having to look up at the moon as your map, I suppose, yeah, that would affect gameplay. So, because I didn't buy this one, I can't really talk about, how long did I keep playing it. But I did notice in the 2 videos I watched, both people stopped playing after about 1 or 2 planets. And it seems like for the most part, people just get confused and bored, and that kind of causes them to stop. Next up, we have 140. Is this game intuitive? I would say originally I did not find it intuitive. You boot up the game and then you're just kind of there, and I was hitting the arrow keys and the shape was changing. I didn't realize it was moving. And I actually managed to exit the game on accident, just trying to hit keys to figure out what to do. But once I did get into the game, I saw that it was kind of a side-scrolling platformer. So then I was like, oh, okay. So initially not at first, but once you figure out what you're doing, then yeah, it is. Audio and visuals, audio definitely plays a big part in the gameplay on this one. All your obstacles and platforms and everything else is in sync with the music. So platforms move up on music, platforms disappear to the music. It's all set to the music. For how long I played for enough to beat the first stage, in that it gave me the first Steam achievement for the first stage. And I don't know, I don't really think there's much of a drive to keep playing this one, because once you kind of see the gimmick of the game, which is the jumping to the music and platforming to the music, kind of seen the whole deal about it. And last we have audio surf, and I'd say it seemed pretty intuitive and simple enough. The first game mode, you collect the colored blocks and avoid the gray ones, and then in any of the other modes you collect colored blocks and try and match them together to clear the little field that you have where you're collecting them. So audio and visuals play a huge part on this one. The actual course that you drive along or ride along is based on what music you pick. So you say you put a song and you throw it in there, and it will determine, what the course looks like, where the blocks that you need to pick up or avoid are placed, and even the speed that you go based on the music. And then visually, all the colors of the blocks definitely impact how you're playing the game, whether you're trying to avoid them or not. And I actually already own this one as well. Playing this one, it's always kind of one of those, if I boot it up, I play it for like a couple songs, 3 or 4 songs, and then, stop. But every once in a while, if I get new music or something, I think to myself, oh, I wonder how this would look in Audio Surf or Beat Hazard, and then I open it up and play it. The next part of this was to take the last time we bought and looked at games and sort of apply some of this stuff to them. So let's get to that. So the first one, Half Minute Hero. I would say that rules seemed intuitive enough. I mean, after you start and get through the little tutorial, the rules become very simple. You have 30 seconds to get to the castle at the end and defeat the evil lord. And you can turn back time by spending coins, but if 30 seconds run up and you haven't beaten him, you lose. As for audio and visuals affecting gameplay, I'd say the visuals do, sort of. I mean, you constantly have a timer at the top of the screen counting down, so that lets you know what's going on and can affect, if you're stressed or not, because if time's running out. And the world itself sort of gets red-ish depending on, if it's close to being destroyed or not. As for do I keep playing this, I've come back to it several times over the last couple weeks. I mean, it's easy enough, it's quick enough that in between doing other things, I can boot it up and beat a level or two in So yeah, I keep coming back to it. Then we have Antechamber, which, after a brief tutorial that gives you the controls, doesn't really give you any more rules. It just kind of throws you on your own. So, you know, I'd say that aside from the controls, no, the rules aren't really intuitive. And then as for audio and visuals affecting gameplay, visuals definitely affect gameplay. Where, you know, all the blocks and what you're looking at, and even perspective. Things can change depending on which way you're looking at stuff, and if you approach something different, it might even be different, or if you look at something different, it's very much heavy on the visual end. And then as for have we continued to play it, I will admit I have not touched Antechamber since the first time I booted up for the previous assignment. And then the last one, which was the Potato Man, again, I didn't buy that one, so this one's a little less information for me to answer these on, but as it wasn't intuitive, it looked like it to me. I mean, it looked like a basic side-scrolling platformer, so I figured that it's intuitive enough. And then did the audio and visuals affect it? I'd say didn't really look like it. And then have I continued to play it? No, because I didn't buy it in the first place. And then the last part, which was to apply the magic circle. From the instructions I got that you wanted us to pick a favorite one of these games and then apply the magic circle, and not rather our favorite game, so I'm going to do that. So the one that I picked to apply it to is Hotline Miami. So I figured it's very easy to see the circle with Hotline Miami. If the player comes up to a door and knocks the door open into an enemy, and then that would be the player end of the circle, and then it goes to the game end of the circle, where then the game, you know, would respond to that by, okay, the bad guy is unconscious. And then it goes back to the player end, where the player would decide, okay, do I execute this enemy or do I let him get up? And then the game end, you know, the game decides what to do from there. Does the enemy get up? Does the enemy die? No matter whatever the player does, then the game in turn reacts to. And so, yeah. If you fire a gun, the game reacts to that by having the enemies notice it and come after you. Sometimes, depending on what you do, it'll cause some of the AI to leave rooms that they're in and search. So the game will react to what you're doing by being suspicious by then having the characters search. So the magic circle helps make it so each time you play through a level, it's different, because you'll make an action, the game will react to that action and make an action, then you'll react to that, and then you'll make an action, and then the game will react to that, and it just, there's your circle of on and on until either you're dead or all the bad guys are dead. Okay, well, I hope that covered everything. There's a lot of stuff to keep track of this week, so thanks.